What's up, nerds? Welcome back to the tournament floor here. My name's Riley Knight, joined by the Pro Tour champion Simon Gertsen. We will be the steady hands on the tiller as we get underway with these turbulent waters of round number 7 here for the day 1 of the World Championship of Magic the Gathering. We, of course, have some of the best players in the world assembled, and from these best, the best of the best in the feature match area this round at 6-0. The Pole, Grzegorz Kowalski, facing off against last year's finalist, Javier Dominguez from Spain. This guy is an all-star, but Kowalski has really begun to make a name for himself this weekend, so.
Yeah, Europe representing.
Getting it done here, as you see these two players in the feature match area. It is a black-red aggro mirror. This deck is heavily represented this weekend, with over half the field sleeving up Goblin Chain Whirlers. As a result, it's safe to say that this deck is going to be the talk of the tournament, as it has been very much in the standard format at large throughout the last couple of months. Let's have a look now and see how these guys get off to the races. Kowalski's the first on the board with a Heart of Kiran. Let's see what Dominguez has to say on turn 2. Nothing from him, although an Abrade may have something to say about that vehicle there.
Yeah, so he does have a turn 2 play. He just doesn't have to play it in his main phase.
Let's have a look and see what Kowalski's up to now. I don't imagine that this Goblin Chainwheel will be a successful pilot of the 4-4, and is indeed no Heart of Kiran has had a heart failure and hits the bin. Dominguez as well now, cutting that Goblin down to size. And a Bomat Courier is a nice one to follow it up with, Simon. A little bit of pressure after that early interaction.
Yeah, and it would be interesting to know if Javier actually delayed that Bomat Courier until Kowalski played that Goblin Chainwhirler on turn 3.
Dominguez there. Mastery of the timing of a lot of these spells. He's done very well in the opening turns. You'd have to say that right now, momentum with him. Although, of course, it's very early days. Anything could happen from here. Although, as we have a look at Kowalski's hand, ooh, my goodness me, is this a hand or a foot, Simon? It's not looking very good.
No, and his Bomat Courier looks even worse than Javier's here.
Yeah, a little bit late to the post office to pick up his mailbag this time around here. But Kowalski's hand well and truly outclassed by Dominguez. Look at this. The only thing he's lacking here is a 4th land. But in the meantime, a Doomfall to pick apart what Kowalski's working with. Kowalski is like, oh, my friend, you got no idea what's going on. Read these and weep. Have a look at these. As the Bomat Courier hits the exile zone, leaving 2 lonely lands here for the Pole. And it's all coming up Spain right now, but for Dominguez.
Yeah, somehow these players traded all of their resources, but Kowalski drew a few more lands. And those lands on Kowalski's side are Phoenixes and Heart of Kirans and Goblin Chainwhirlers on Dominguez's side.
Kowalski now. Looks like he's ripped a freshie, yes indeed, with Chandra, the Torture Defiance, and a very neat and tidy Scrap Heap Scrounger off the top, although not a great defensive play in the face of this big flying bird.
No, the defensive player is actually to get Chandra to 5 loyalty as opposed to 4. Yep. Oh, Chainwhirler takes care.
So now, Kowalski, well and truly on the back foot, after Dominguez continues to fire on all cylinders. Canyon Slough being cycled away. What's Kowalski found here? I didn't think it was a land. Didn't get a great look at it as he zipped it to the back of his hand there. Playing his cards close to his chest, both figuratively and literally here is the Pole. And a slight pause in the proceedings as these players consider their next moves. Simon, we have seen Red-Black Aggro, as we've said, one of the dominant decks of this tournament, as indeed in the standard format. And as a result, players have come ready and prepared to hustle and bustle with this spectre that's hanging over this tournament. And as a result, the main deck configurations of many lists are a little bit unusual from what we've seen.
Yeah, but honestly, I have to say, the players that were trying to out-metagame this tournament, they have not been succeeding. It's Kowalski and Dominguez at the top of the tables with Red-Black Aggro.
Yeah, they're getting it done here as we see a big attack from Dominguez, and that's enough for Kowalski to say, yeah, my friend, you got it. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Get it done here. Javier Dominguez, an early lead for him as we close out day number 1 of the World Championship. Round number 7, the last one today. We got 7 more rounds tomorrow, of course, in this 6-figure weekend. There's a huge purse being given away across both the World Championship and the Team Series final that'll be taking place on Sunday, Simon.
Looking forward to Guilds of Ravnica Team Sealed.
Yeah, a little bit of an early appearance on the main stage here, with Guilds of Ravnica being the format for the World Championship. That's coming up on Sunday, but what's coming up right now, my friend? A quick break. We're going to take a break, and on the other side of it, we'll be back live from Las Vegas with more action from the World Championship. We'll see you back here after this. And welcome back to the tournament floor here at Las Vegas, USA. My name's Riley Knight, welcoming you back to live coverage of Round 7 here at the 2018 Magic the Gathering World Championship. This is the last round of day number 1, and as you can see on your screen, day number 2 kicks off 9 AM sharp tomorrow. We'll be getting underway with more Standard, more Dominaria Limited, and then Sunday, of course, we're going to kick things off with Guilds of Ravnica before the top 4. An action-packed weekend, Simon. It's all happening here in Las Vegas this weekend.
Yeah, this has been an exciting day 1, and I can't wait for tomorrow because, like we've said, even a 7-0 record, even a 4-3 record, that doesn't mean you're in or out either way.
Grzegorz Kowalski facing off against Javier Dominguez. Javier will be a familiar sight for those of you who followed Worlds last year, making it all the way to the finals. This guy out of Spain, one of the big names on the European circuit. I would say probably the most successful player to come from Spain. Definitely someone who really puts the country on the map in the Magic world.
Yeah, Spain is actually, I mean, Magic is hugely popular in Spain. We have these huge GPs there, Madrid, Barcelona, of course, super popular cities, destinations. But Spain hasn't been on the map regarding the highest levels of professional Magic. Outside of Dominguez here. Dominguez, I tell you what, he's a nerd of the oldest school. Favorite film, Lord of the Rings. So you know you know how he kick it. He's truly one of us, ladies and gentlemen. His opponent, however, Grzegorz Kowalski from Poland. This guy, a bit of an up-and-comer. I mean, I don't like saying this because I've liked Grzegorz Kowalski since way before it was cool. Before it was cool? Before it was cool. I've been on the Grzegorz Kowalski train for a long, long time, and this guy has really been getting it done on the other side of the Atlantic. It's great to see him getting the fame and fortune that he deserves with a huge start to the World Championship so far. X and O. Looks like Dominguez is unhappy with his 7. He's going to go down to 6.
We got the chance to catch up with some of the players and have a jaw about some of their favourite, things within the Magic world and without. Kowalski's favourite draft format, Khans of Tarkir, a man of true taste and refinement when it comes to draft formats.
Good choice. Morphing, 3-color decks.
Not so much a man of great taste and refinement when it comes to literature. Favourite book? The Da Vinci Code.
Oh.
Ooh. Yes. So he knows his way around a game of Magic. Doesn't know his way around a library, apparently. Just goes to the the bestseller table. Oh, this looks good.
But that's fine. This is the World Championships of Magic.
It's not the World Championships of having great taste in books. Let me just take the elevator down to the bottom of my ivory tower here as we get underway with game number 2 between Dominguez and Kowalski here. Kowalski looks like he's stuck with his 7. Dominguez going down to 5. That's a rough start here for the Spaniard after an early victory in game number 1, Simon. 0
lands in that 6 cards. Not remotely keepable.
A real clunker here for him. And a mulligan at this stage, a pretty big setback, especially when the opponent's on 7.
Of course, yeah. I mean, your chances drop drastically. We're looking at maybe still double-digit range, but barely.
In terms of percent?
Yeah, in terms of chances of winning a game on 5 against 7.
Well, he's going to keep this one, although it's glutted with 4 drops. We'll see if he can make it work here, work his magic here. Dominguez, as Kowalski, not having too much of an issue. His hand looking pretty decent. He's going to be able to curve out nicely with a Heart of Kiran. Maybe see something like a Hazoret or a Chandra down the line. Dominguez finds his second land. Good news for him. But here's Old Scrappy. But Heart of Kiran once again not going to get across.
So what you want to be doing when you are mulliganing a few times, you want to drag out the game. Because that way the card disadvantage you suffered early on has less of a relative impact on the overall game.
Kowalski finds that 4th land. He's going to be able to hustle and bustle with a powerful 4-drop here. This is very much the name of the game when it comes to these powerful red decks. Ever since Hazoret first burst onto the scene all that time ago, we have seen an incredibly competitive race between all these mythics and rares at the 4-drop slot in the red deck, Simon.
Yeah, and it's crazy to me how Hazoret is so good, such an amazing Magic card, and it's somehow one of the worst 4-drops that sees play in the red-black aggro decks.
Hasn't always been the case. I think it's fair to say the red decks used to be a lot lower to the ground, and that's changed.
Yeah. The Ramonet red, in particular, where you were just curving out 1, 2, 3, and then Hazoret was kind of like your final play, putting so much pressure on your opponent.
Well, Hazoret the Fervent not going to be doing too much here as we see Chandra's Defeat fired off there. And another Hazoret for Dominguez, an all-out attack. He just wanted to empty his hand so he could get Hazoret online.
That's why he mulliganed to 5.
Next level plays here with Javier Dominguez. He picks up a perfect 7. He's like, no. Too many cards in my hand here. I want to get it done. With the great god herself. And she's getting busy across for a bunch of damage. And Kowalski down to 12.
And this is playing to your outs. This is saying, this Chandra's Defeat might help me in the long game, but I'm not winning that. Not with the Hazoret on the other side of the table, and basically me being down 6 cards right now.
I think the other real advantage here for Dominguez, as we see Kowalski deploy a Chandra, I think the other advantage for him is that he directly contradicted what you said before about wanting to draw out the game and made you look like a bit of a goose, and that's a real upside for Dominguez there.
Yeah, the Chandra's Defeat on an indestructible creature. Yeah, that's a new one.
That's a new one, and I mean certainly done for a good cause here as Dominguez gets busy. But Kowalski also getting on the front foot, swishing the willow around, swinging for the pickets here as we see Unlicensed Disintegration tear apart Dominguez's board. And what's the attack now for Kowalski?
Well, the important part is that he also freed up his Hazoret. So my favorite play with Chandra, immediately making 2 mana, effectively making her cost 2, and that allowed him to unlicense Disintegration, leaving him with only 1 card in hand.
Kowalski hitting Dominguez down to 6 now. We'll see what the Spaniard's response is. He's got a Hazoret of his own, fresh card off the top. Looks like he's got Khan and Rekindling Phoenix in hand here with a Scrap Heap Scrounger in the bin. So Dominguez, tricky spot for him here.
Dominguez is kind of facing lethal, Riley.
Just kind of?
Kind of facing lethal.
Pseudo-lethal, but he's going to attack all the same. Unafraid he is. getting across at Chandra, so she's going to hit the bin. Back to Kowalski now. Lone Chandra's defeat in hand for Kowalski, so you think he'd be able to wrap this one up. Dominguez on 6. He might have his Phoenix removed here, forcing the block with a pile of ashes. And it may be the first step for Dominguez to pick up his cards. Kowalski also a Rekindling Phoenix in hand. So Forks hits the bin.
This is a forced block, of course.
And, yep, we're not going to see that particular egg hatch in the next morning. And Dominguez going to pack him up. We're going to game number 3. Kowalski doing his very best to defend this unbroken record that he has so far. An unfortunate set of circumstances for the Spaniard there. A rueful smile on his face, down to 5. Did a great job of making a game of it, Simon, but ultimately Kowalski just too many eggs in that particular frying pan.
Yeah, tried to go aggro, didn't draw out the game, so it was clear that he lost.
Kowalski tested with Martin User for this event, Simon. So again, in rubbing shoulders with some of the best players in the world, not only on the tournament floor, but also in the testing house.
Eastern Europe Alliance.
Yep. Eastern and Central Europe were getting it done here. I think User didn't end up on the same list, however. User ended up on blue-black control, so the results of their testing may have been a little scattered, but all the same, that's the way that it went there. Of course, you'll be unsurprised to learn that the Haruya Latin team, a huge source of support for Javier Dominguez. He tested with Carvalho, Salvato, and Gucci Boy. Andrea Mengucci got busy with the Haruya Latin team as well in preparation for this event.
What is Mengucci on? Also red-black? I think so.
Yes, indeed he is. The Italian stallion hasn't had the best of starts at 3-3 at the moment. But again, we look at that and we say, oh yeah, it's a bit of a clunky start. But at Worlds, it's actually, I mean, as long as you're at a positive winning record, you're in great shape.
Owen Turtenwald is at 3-3. Lots of great players at 3-3. Luis Salvato.
Reed Duke. Wyatt Darby as well, who we've seen in the feature match area throughout the weekend, impressing everyone once again with his careful, precise play, his poise, very elegant gentleman in both on and off the battlefield. And I don't know, I hope we get to see a lot more of Darby in the coming years. A Pro Tour champion, his name's been up in lights, and I hope this isn't the end of things for him. I hope he's not a one-hit wonder.
Very composed player.
I think it's a great way to say it. Yep. Well, composition, the name of the game for these two players as well. Kowalski, very much a velvet sledgehammer. He's very soothing, very soft, and very an unassuming bloke to be around. But I tell you what, he hits bloody hard.
Then he hits you over the face.
He hits you across the scone, and you've really felt it. Dominguez, always a smile on his face, very friendly bloke. I think the only people who aren't huge fans of Dominguez are the draft spotters, who have really got their work cut out for them. There was poor old Corbin this morning, Simon. I don't know if you saw him.
Oh, we did the draft replay with him.
Yes, of course, I saw that. There was a point at which you can go back, of course, and watch Dominguez's draft from this morning. But there was a point at which Corbin was actually watching the monitor of the camera filming it, rather than Dominguez in real life, because he had a better angle that way.
He's a challenge.
Yes, no, he really challenges his channels his inner Russian grandma. Stooping over the cards as much as he can there to get the best look at them, I suppose. So these players putting the finishing touch on their sideboards here. As we say, not too much changes post-board. Chandra's defeat certainly a definite inclusion. Maybe some other disruption in the form of Doomfall.
Yeah, we've now basically seen how this matchup plays out. There are these key removal spells. Mm-hmm. So you have Artifact Removal for Heart of Kiran. You have Magma Spray for Scrap Heap Scrounger, and then of course everything else that deals with red creatures, in particular the 1-mana tempo play of Chandra's Defeat. And that means that the player that manages to have just 1 or 2 creatures more stick on the battlefield is hugely favored, and then it's all about those planeswalkers coming down. And almost everyone in the field is relying on Karn, Sign of Urza, to pull ahead in these kind of mirror matches after sideboarding.
We saw that in round number 6, Simon. When Karn, Sign of Urza turns into a personal Howling Mine, the cumulative advantage is very difficult to overcome, especially in these red-black based decks that don't have a ready source of card advantage.
Yeah, you can actually see it once again here. This is Kowalski's deck after sideboarding. Removal spells, Karns, the Eldest Reborn, just one-upping each other. Scrappy Scrounger actually great against the Eldest Reborn, but with this sideboarding, it's actually not that easy to have a critical mass of creatures in the graveyard sometimes.
Scrappy Scrounger goes down to a cut. Dominguez follows it up with a Goblin Chain Whirler. Whirly Dub's getting it done here for him. Pianalar the play. Certainly want to play that one after the Chain Whirler has hit the battlefield. But he's going to come in across anyway, followed up by a Rekindling Phoenix here for Dominguez, who has assembled a pretty classic start. Scrap Heap Scrounger into Chain Whirler into Rekindling Phoenix. Not the first time we've seen that one here.
And Rekindling Phoenix is so much better than Glorybringer in a post-sideboard world of Chandra's Defeat.
So Kowalski now. Have a look at what what particular pots he's got on the boil here. A lot of top end, and he's paying the price as a result here without the lands to cast his spells. Difficult spot here for the poll.
No black source either.
Yeah.
So otherwise, Doomfall would be a reasonable option. Even Chandra's defeating the Chain Whirler, Doomfalling the Phoenix, suddenly you're looking great, but that's a real problem.
Even just something like a Dragon Skull Summit would be terrific here, enabling Kowalski to play those disruptive options. But you know, the opposite is is happening here for Dominguez.
Yeah, Dominguez is faking strength now. He's like, I got this 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop start. I'm gonna play some more good cards.
Yep.
Wait a second.
I think another land off the top here for Dominguez. So it is feast and famine for both of these players. It is all cow and no move for Dominguez, whereas Kowalski has an overwhelming surplus of moo. You'd have to say.
And in general, what we can expect from this is the person that's slightly screwed is going to be favored against the person that's flooded like this, because you generally draw yourself out of a screw at some point. Every draw step is just another shot at a land for Kowalski, and he's going to unleash his cards. Whereas for Dominguez, well, it's very difficult to just draw high-impact cards every single turn.
Exactly. Whereas Kowalski can draw a broad percentage of his deck in all those lands that are still within there. Dominguez has to have... He's got a much smaller window of cards that actually get it done here. So if this is the way that it's going to go here, Kowalski is, in a vacuum, certainly favoured, although that can change with just a couple of good draws here for Dominguez.
Yep.
So, Kowalski ships a Braid off the top for him. And Javier now is going to bring back that Scrap Heap Scrounger from the bin. And that's a better piece of action from him here. No, you're shaking your head, Simon. You don't like what's going on.
Another land from the top.
Oh, no.
I mean, that's land number 9 or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Rough stuff here for Dominguez. Interesting to see that he is gone for the fist flavor of Temple Massage rather than the classic John Finkel finger massage. That's what separates the good players from the great ones here as Dominguez gets busy with his creatures and attack for 7. Let's see what Kowalski wants to get up to here. A Braid in hand for him, of course. Not going to fire it off at this stage.
Well, but I like his lines here. He knows that he's waiting for a black source, and he wants to maximize the chance of getting that Phoenix with the Doomfall.
So, Kowalski gets across for 2. For 1, excuse me. And the Rekindling Phoenix getting across for 4. I got that one right.
What is going on here?
Just mono nothing. It's the mono nothing mirror. Well, now here's Khan, Sign of Urza. That's a better one from Dominguez off the top. You see him immediately put up 2 more lands off the top. This guy just cannot get a break. Oh, poor old Javier. Mate, he's just boarded in 10 extra lands. Rough stuff here for the Spaniard as we go back to Kowalski now. Can he find the land that he needs? He can't.
Ether Hub.
Oh, an Ether Hub, excuse me, off the top there. Okay, that's better stuff now for Kowalski. Opens up that Doomfall. You'd think he'd be very keen to fire that one off nice and early, Simon.
Yes, but suddenly there's a Karn on the other side, and that Ether Hub is only going to produce a single black. So I think this is far from over, but I wouldn't mind getting rid of that Phoenix while the coast is clear.
Yes, indeed. The sun poking out from behind the clouds here for Kowalski, so it's time for him to pick up his farming implements and start to make some hay. Across comes the Thopter, just for 1 again here. And the Ether Hub could fuel a Doomfall here, as you say. Although plenty of 4-drops for him to play. Rekindling Phoenix of his own, in addition to double Khan here.
But Doomfall and the Eldest Reborn are not going to get better if you let that Phoenix stick around.
It's very true. So Kowalski may want to, again, just fire up that Doomfall at the opportune moment. Captain Jack Sparrow's in his ear whispering, mate.
What I like here is Doomfalling the Phoenix, giving Dominguez another land when he activates his Karn, top decking a Black Source, and slamming the Eldest Reborn.
Oh, to make them sacrifice the
Karn.
Karn. All right, well, let's see if things go the way of Kowalski. He's taken a different line, jagged off the side of the road now with a Rekindling Phoenix. This is not a Simon Goetzen approved path to victory. We'll see if it works out from all the same.
Well, the main question is, how do you expect this game to continue? Because I just see a bunch of cards in Kowalski's hand that suddenly don't have the same appeal anymore. And I think it was not only clear to us, but clear to everyone that Dominguez was not holding any creatures. Because in this matchup, you're just playing your creatures. You're just playing your permanents. There's no reason to hold back.
Dominguez draws Hazaret the Fervent, Simon. Not the best card when your hand is overloaded with lands that you cannot deploy.
Yeah, but actually another good way of dealing with the flood.
Yes, very true.
See, he actually gets to deploy his whole hand here.
Just starts to discard those cards now. 2 damage upstairs, and all of a sudden, Hazaret actually wakes up from her slumber. 1 card remaining for Dominguez, so a nice rip from him here as Rekindling Phoenix comes across, joined by the Red God.
I'm very impressed. I'm very, very impressed. Look at this. The Thopter token can't chump block. These Phoenixes are kind of bouncing off each other. But Dominguez, despite terrible, terrible draws, has put himself into a winning position here.
He's really stitched something special together here as Kowalski goes down to 1. Dominguez on 19. We see Karn go upstairs.
2 1-mana spells off Karn.
Both of which, of course, he can cast thanks to the 1 land that's remaining. All of a sudden, Dominguez has just gone from 0 to hero. He has found the technology that he needs. It took him a while, you know. There was a couple of clunky false starts from he's ripped the cord on the chainsaw and it just hasn't started. But now all of a sudden, Chandra's defeat on that pile of ashes. The Elemental hits the bin. Back to Kowalski. Needs something truly miraculous off the top here. It's a mountain. We talked about drawing out of, of being constricted on mana here, Simon, but it hasn't happened in time for Kowalski. See, an Abrade on the Elemental, but he has to keep this this Doomfall now ready to get rid of the Chandra. Can he stabilize on 1? A very difficult thing to do against Mono Red, especially when they've got that Karn.
Against the Karn, also being on 1. Now Ribbons is lethal. Hazaret is lethal.
Yeah, Abrade, unfortunately for Dominguez, not lethal. 1 more bite at the cherry. There's a P and a La, but it's going to be Mountain goes to the hand of the Spaniard here. See what his next move is. Scrap Heap Scrounger in the bin as well for Dominguez. He can smell blood in the water. Let's see what Kowalski finds. A Scrap Heap Scrounger for him as well. What's his move here, Simon?
What an absolute crazy game. He has to kill that Karn, and he's 1 damage short with if he plays that Glorybringer. And he's 1 Black Source short of getting back into this game with the Eldest Reborn.
The Eldest Reborn would be fantastic here. Immediately the Karn had hit the bin thanks to the sacrifice trigger. But Kowalski does not have what he needs. His Kingdom for a Dragon Skull Summit, ladies and gentlemen. Ether Hub just not passing muster here today.
We actually don't see that happening often. We see Red-Black having issues hitting that land drop number 4, but not having a Black Source in play is super rare.
No, I would say the Swamp is usually more of a liability than something they're desperately begging for, as we see 2 removal spells off the top here, thanks to the Karn activation. I mean, Dominguez has just got him dead to rights here, right?
Well, it's not over until it's over. What is Dominguez going to do with his Karn? Does he go for more random cards, but he's going to get the lesser one? Or does he just take Pia and hope to somehow sneak in that final point of damage?
So, Kowalski gets the copy of Chandra's defeat. Scrap Heap Scrounger comes back from the bin, as you would expect. Karn gets through the turn untouched by the Thopter token. Back to Dominguez, who's drawn 500,000 lands, finds a Goblin, a Siege Gang Commander off the top. That should be enough to wrap things up here for Dominguez. Looks like Kowalski's dream run is going to come to an end thanks to a classic Magic card. This one's been around for a long time. It's going to close things out here for Dominguez, you would think. A Brave gets rid of the Thopter token. Kowalski on 1. Across comes the Scrap Heap Scrounger, and Javier Dominguez finishes a very convincing day number 1 at 6-1, as does his opponent, Grzegorz Kowalski. Both of these players putting up stellar results on day number 1 of the World Championship, Simon.
What a final game. I love it.
We really did see the sparks fly between these two players, but ultimately Dominguez came up with the goods here. Red-black aggro very much at the top tables of this tournament so far, and we'll see how things progress throughout day 2. But before we bring you coverage of that, of course, it's time to check in with one of our back tables, Mike Sechrist and Ken Yukihiro here. Simon, Mike Sechrist and Yukihiro both at 4-2. Now, Sechrist is on blue-black mid-range, a deck that we've seen out and about a little bit this weekend, but Yukihiro has, oh my goodness me, he's really reached all the way back to the back of the spice rack. He's just dumped a pot of Tabasco on the boil, where it's several million Scoville units. The spice is very real. It's mono-blue Slitherblade.
It's crazy, Rally. This deck is actually quite popular on Magic Online. You drop some small creature, a 1-drop, a 2-drop. You put a bunch of Curious Obsessions on there, and you start attacking.
And Yukihiro hasn't found an early creature, although he is able to play something of a controlling role with lots of counter spells and a little bit of interaction as well. But again, plan A for Yukihiro. Cheap creature, Curious Obsession, draw a bunch of cards, get him dead. Sechrist, on the other hand, has a lot of very powerful cards, everything from the Scarab God to Vraska's Contempt to Champion of Wits. And well, look, I mean, this deck is just what it says on the tin. It's a mid-range deck. It tries to position itself favorably against a broad format. And I'm sure that Sechrist has made concessions to the red deck because I heard him saying it before. Things like Essence Extraction, what have you, a bit of extra life gain. I wonder what his matchup is like against this mono-blue list.
In general, the blue-black mid-range deck is actually quite controlling, only that you're playing Glintsleeve Siphoner in the main deck. So I would think that should be good for him, as long as Ken doesn't have one of these unfair starts with an early drop, the Curious Obsession, and then all the counter magic. However, we've seen Ken, whenever he was in the feature match area, with these really reactive draws for some reason, where he's playing almost like a combo deck that is somehow protecting the hand and then dropping a few creatures later, like you see here, for example, 2 1/1s on turn 4.
Super, super weird deck. Super weird deck. Everything from Merfolk Trickster to Nimble Obstruction to Siren Storm Tamer, as you see there. Eating a fatal push right now. But Glintsleeve Siphoner, Mike Sechrist coming out with the hits old and new. The 2-1, not drawing him any cards this time around. But it's good to see Yukihiro, after an early loss in Constructed, still getting it done at 4-2. Things looking good for him. And of course, it's going to be him with the weird and wacky off-the-wall deck.
But still, I would always think that he is more of a green player, you know, ramp, or maybe some, you know, not like your classical control, but your crazy 4-color control. And now he's there playing mono blue aggro.
You never know what to expect. Yeah. He's always going to wrong foot you, Ken Yukihiro. Just when you think you've got a beat on him, nah. Oh no. He's going to zag on you. Here is Walking Ballista now for Yukihiro. Comes down as a 1/1.
Could just be a 2-mana removal spell for Glintsleeve Siphoner.
Perfectly respectable use of the card, you'd have to say. Well, let's see what Siggy's up to here. Mike Sechrist, one of the members of the Channel Fireball Pro Team, the only member not on the Hall of Fame, as a lot of people like to very often and regularly point out. I'm not one of those people. I don't often talk about the fact that Mike Sechrist isn't in the Hall of Fame. And the fact that Mike Sechrist isn't in the Hall of Fame isn't a defining moment of his career. You know, it's not the most important thing about him. And certainly the people are always sticking daggers in the same when I say, mate, just give him a break. He's not in the Hall of Fame. Stop talking about it.
It was crazy how Team Channel Fireball almost made it to the team series.
Yeah, if you didn't get across what happened to the last Pro Tour, there's a real story to it here. As if Vraska's Contempt takes care of that Siren Storm Tamer there for Siggy, who isn't in the Hall of Fame. See what he wants to do with his next turn now. Scarab God in hand for him. Back to Yukihiro. Looks like he's happy to play a more controlling role, and I like this route against a more aggressive deck.
Yeah, of course. So I'm waiting for Ken to drop something like a Tempest Djinn and then protect it with counter magic, but he still has to find a creature that's actually relevant.
A lot of counter magic in the list of Yukihiro here, and you can see in his hand he's playing not only a Nimble Obstructionist, but also Wizard's Retort here. But it looks like this Impulse from Supreme Will is going to resolve here for Sechrist.
And an end of turn Nimble Obstructionist could actually be the card that Yukihiro has been waiting for. Just get a 3/1 Flash Flyer, put the Curious Obsession on it, and hope that your one counter is actually sufficient. And Sechrist's hand is not amazing here, actually.
Just a Doomfall in addition to that Scarab God.
It's not a bad hand, but it could be a lot scarier for Ken Yukihiro.
Oh, sure.
Torrential Gearhulks, for example, are a disaster to deal with.
Let's have a look at the hand of Ken Yukihiro here with Mike Sechrist firing off a Doomfall. Yukihiro, as you can see, working with Curious Obsession, Nibble Obstructionist, Wizard's Retort. I think he's thinking about firing off this Wizard's Retort here.
Yes, he is, but it's not a clear cut choice. I think it's one of these things, yeah, where you kind of want to get your 3/1 onto the battlefield, because that's kind of the most important thing. And then, whether you counter or not, the information that Sechrist gains from seeing your hand is actually not that big.
Now, important to note here, Sechrist can't change modes on the Doomfall just because there's a creature in play. It's locked in when you cast the spell. And now we see the Wizard's Retort cast for just 2 mana. The Nibble Obstructionist is a wizard, a bird wizard. The Unseen University takes all comers.
So Yukihiro got his mana reduction there.
Mm-hmm. For all the good it did him, as we see Curious Obsession on the Nimble Obstructionist. Oh, and another one off the top. Look at that. Build your own divination. Get it done. Muldrifter comes across for 3 now, or for 5. What am I talking about? He gets +1/+1, as if that weren't good enough, Simon. Walking Ballista off the top as well. Get that one down for 2.
Yep.
It's a very good Doomfall protection, although that was just cast.
And now Ken Yukihiro starts to fire on all cylinders. Rev up the engine, old son. Get it done. Here's the Scarab God for Sechrist. A standard all-star. Let's see if it's good enough for the American. Another Nimble Obstructionist off the top. That can, importantly, counter any activations of the Scarab God here.
So who wins in the fight, the Scarab God or Nimble Obstructionist with 2 Curious Obsession?
Well, right now there's no fight to be had as the Obstructionist sails above the Scarab God, and Yukihiro well and truly taking to the skies with a Tempest Djinn as a 5/4, 6/4 even, 7/4, Simon. More islands in the Caribbean here, and the Tempest Djinn is the master of them all. Sechrist's going to have a hard time dealing with this one, although he does have a Vraska's Contempt in hand. No. He's got an island in hand.
I think we're seeing an upkeep activation of the Scarab God.
So let's see if Yukihiro wants to respond to that. Unless I'm mistaken, Nimble Obstructionist can counter it.
Activated or triggered abilities?
Yeah. And not only that, it also pays Yukihiro in kind with a card as well, so you don't fall behind. I mean, you don't get the 3/1, but you get a freshie off the top. We're going to see it cycle, counter the Scarab God activation. Mike Sechrist falling further and further behind at this onslaught from Ken Yukihiro, master of the skies. Double Curious Obsession, drawing 2 cards a turn. He cannot get enough value. And Siggy's having a very tough time of things here, Simon.
But he has land number 8. I think that's absolutely crucial because the second Scarab God activation will give him a flyer to block with.
So, Siggy now, 4th land for him. And plenty of creatures in the yard for him to work with, especially as that Nimble Obstructionist just got put there by Yukihiro. And that's going to be important because, of course, that not only blocks in the air, but also tussles very well against the Tempest Djinn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 4/4 flyers are where it's at. But Sechrist just counted Ken's lands.
Mm-hmm. 7.
It should be 7. So the 8th land would actually mean that there are 2.
I'll take the better one, buddy. I'll take the Bird Wizard. Thank you, please and thank you there.
So two 2 activations on Walking Ballista, or just a new Walking Ballista.
Yeah, even better here. Look at this. Walking Ballista's going to take out that, the Nimble Obstructionist. Another big attack is enough for Ken Yukihiro to wrap things up. Mike Sechrist goes down 2 games to 1, and the power of the Slither Blade is just too much to handle, Simon.
Well, what can I say? Tempest Gen is quite the card.
It's a hell of a card, Simon. It's been a wild ride, and Ken Yukihiro has been our pilot, and we thank him for it. We'll see much more of this tomorrow, I imagine. Yukihiro really has surprised us all with his deck choice, something that I don't think anyone was really anticipating. I'm very interested to see not only how this deck goes this weekend, but what its role is post-rotation. We have seen Goblin Chainwhirler dominate Standard, but there is Banalish Marshal, there is Dread Shade, there's Steel Leaf Champion, and there is Tempest Djinn as other powerful triple-cost creatures, and we're seeing the power of Tempest Djinn in this list.
Yeah, here it was actually tremendous because it was the card that really put the clock on Sechrist.
It really was, and Sechrist obviously not able to come up with the goods there, unfortunately for him, but his record at Xen 2 is still highly, highly defensible with the weird wrinkles that we have with records at the World Championship. And as a result, of course, you're not going to want to miss a minute of the action from day number 2 as we draw closer and closer to our top 4. That's just about this. That's just about that for the coverage of the Swiss rounds of day number 1. Stick with us, however, because on the other side of this, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap up day number 1 from Las Vegas at the World Championship.